Hello, financial algebra people. One of the purposes of this class is to provide you with some financial literacy, it's called, which is an understanding of banking and credit cards and things like that. Today we're going to talk about the APY, which is the annual percentage yield, and compare that to the APR, which is annual percentage rate. If you go to a bank's website, you will see they advertise the APY. Why do they advertise the APY? Well, because it's a little bit higher than the APR. That's the simple reason. And the idea here is, say you have a 3% interest rate, but the interest is compounded daily, which means each day a little bit of interest is put into your account, and the next day when they calculate your interest of 3%, there's a little bit more in there, and then this process continues for the rest of the year. You end up getting more in your account than what a straight 3% would give you when it's compounded. So the banks like to say what the APY is compared to the APR. Alright, so we're going to do this two ways. One is to use the compound interest formula, which we learned last class. And that's here, B equals P times 1 plus R over N to the NT. B is your ending balance. P is your principal, what you start with. R is your interest rate. Remember, a rate means a decimal. N is the number of times it's compounded annually. And T is time. All that's in the last lesson. So here, Sharon deposits $8,000. That's going to be the principal. That's what we're starting with. The rate is 3.2%, so when you make that a decimal, it's 0.032. I'm going to switch to pencil. Over N, which is the number of times it's compounded. Here it's compounded daily. So that means N is 365 because there's 365 days in a year. And the exponent is going to be NT, which is 365. And 1 year is the T. T is time in years. 365 times 1. So I'm going to take my scientific calculator that I downloaded for free at the App Store, and I'm going to say 8,000 times 1 plus 0.032 divided by 365, close the paren, and raise it to the exponent of 365 times 1. And I hit equals, and she ends up with her ending balance of $8,260. And remember, in this class, it's always dollars and cents, 2 decimal places, so there's a 12, but that 8 rounds that 12 up to 13 cents. So that's her ending balance. Well, how much money did she make? She made 8,260.13 minus her original starting balance of 8,000. She made $260.13. Well, how do we find out what the yield was, the annual percentage yield? Well, that's how much she made. That's how much she made, 260.13. If I divide that by her original investment amount, so 260.13 divided by 8,000 comes out to be 0.0325. which as a percent is 3.25%. So 3.2% was the APR, but 3.25% was the APY. Not that much more, but a little bit more. So that's why the banks would advertise that number. Now, what I want to show you is another way to do this problem, and that is to use the formula. There's an APY formula. The APY formula is one plus R over N raised to the N power minus 1. Well, R is the rate, and N is the number of times compounded annually. So in our problem, it's going to be 1 plus the rate, which you make the 3.2% into a decimal like we just did on the last problem, divided by 365, raised to 365 as the exponent, and that's the n, and then a minus 1. So let's do this on our calculator. Okay, so using our calculator, we're going to have parentheses 1 plus 0.032 divided by, because that's what a fraction bar means, divided, 365, close paren, put the exponent of 365. Now here's where you have to be careful. There's a minus 1. That minus 1 is not in the exponent. If I just typed in a minus 1 here, I would get an error, or I would get the wrong answer. So I hit the arrow to get out of the exponent, and now do minus 1. And when I hit enter, I get 0.0325, which is 3.25%. So using the APY formula, it's a little simpler. It's one step. So that's how I want you to do this assignment. Use the APY formula to see how the bank calculates your APY from the APR.